On today's show, Team USA got their revenge on Finland and win the gold medal. We'll talk about the gold medal game, the bronze medal game, and the team of the tournament on today's episode of Locked On NHL Prospects.
You are Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome back to Locked On NHL Prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. On this podcast, we break down everything prospects related for you 5 days a week, Monday to Friday. I'm Hattie Kalakash, QMJHL and Crossover Scout for Elite Prospects, with Sebastian High, USHL and Crossover Scout for Elite Prospects as well. And on today's show, we'll be covering the gold and bronze medal games. Team USA finally gets their revenge on Finland after losing to them 4-3 in overtime in the group stage, by beating them 4-3 in overtime in the group stage. We'll talk about that game in detail in the first segment. In the second segment, we'll talk about the bronze medal game, Czechia versus Sweden. And Czechia won that game in the shootout. One of the most ridiculous ends, one of the most endless ends to a game I've ever seen in a while at the World Juniors. I think that was a record for the World Juniors, 14-round shootout. 3-2 win for Czechia. And then in the final segment, we'll cover the All-Stars segment. So we'll talk about the Directorate Awards that were awarded by media, best goalie, best defenseman, best forward. Then we'll talk about the media voted All-Star team and the MVP for that. And then we'll do our ballot for the All-Stars. So packed episode. Before we get into any of that, though, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers can get up to $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. It's $150 if your team wins. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. If you're watching on YouTube, as usual, remember to like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you thought of the episode. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please leave us a rate and review and make sure to make us your first listen of the day. So let's get started right away with the bronze medal game. Finally, USA gets their revenge on Finland after a heartbreaking overtime loss, 4-3 against Finland in the group stage. They get their 4-3 win in overtime. In turn, when it mattered the most, Team USA wins the gold medal. Talk me through kind of the highlights of that game, because it didn't start off too well for USA. They were down early, right?
They were indeed. This was a game in which the States trailed 3-1 at one point and came back rather emphatically, but this was a fascinating game in my opinion. Clearly the States were dominating possession. They had a lot more shots on goal, but with Finland, you had the elite level goaltending with Petteri Rimponen, who we'll be talking about a lot in this episode, and he just outshone Trey Augustine in this entire game. But in the end, the just dynamic offensive creation prevailed for the United States, and they won in OT. But there were so many swings of momentum in this game. Finland was very opportunistic early on in the first half of the game of making the most of every single opportunity they were given by the States, and that's how you saw Jesse Kiskinen score the first goal on the power play to make it 1-0 just 7 minutes into the first period, and then that was tied up by James Higgins shortly thereafter at 12:04. A really nice opportunistic goal there for James Higgins, reading the play really nicely, and that first line was ticking all night long. Talk to me about their chemistry and just how much they influenced the result at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of the chemistry on the first line, I mean, it's just ridiculous for Team USA. And when you talk about chemistry, I also think of the chemistry that Finland brought to this game. I mean, they worked together so wonderfully. So I think chemistry was kind of the storyline of this game, because I was watching Finland in that first period and I was like, there's no way these kids play together once like this. There's no way this team is together for the first time. They look like they've been playing together all year, connecting passes, making wonderful forechecking, like synchronous reads, like where they were reading off each other really well, timing their routes, timing their interventions to perfection. The transition, same thing, in the offensive zone off the cycle. Everything was so well timed, and the synchronicity in this team was wonderful. And you can say the same when you're watching that top line, that BC3 line for Team USA. I mean, these guys have been playing together for a while, and I think that they only were able to match the chemistry that Finland brought to this tournament, the connectiveness that they brought. Higgins looked a lot less like the third cog on that line than he did at the start of the season. The kind of development in his playmaking ability that he showed throughout the month of November continued at this tournament, and he was really kind of the creative driver on that team, with Gabe Perreault and Ryan Leonard kind of occupying space, finding opportunities in the offensive zone where they could circle behind the net, get lost in coverage, then Higgins would find them. So yeah, chemistry was a great story of this game, and that's how USA, you really turned it on their heads, because surprisingly, in terms of chemistry, Cole Hudson was kind of the driving cog behind that front five for Team USA. The front three of Boston College, Hagen's, Leonard, Perot, we know about them. And then you had Hudson and Bouillon on the blue line. But Hudson was the one driving the offense, despite playing with established NCAA players among those other four, right? Like that was something I wasn't expecting from Hudson at this tournament. And he just basically stole for the spotlight from Bouillon at the blue line for Team USA, right?
He did. I think he was fantastic for the States at this tournament. And what I loved to see personally was that the role he played and the style he played was almost identical to his performances at the U18 World Championships back in May.
Yeah.
His goal was to recycle possession in the offensive zone whenever possession became more contended and more contentious. They would just rifle the puck in Cole Hudson's direction. He would secure things down, calm the play down, and immediately put the puck in the place where another chance could be created. And was just consistently happening where he was rescuing potential dump outs into the neutral zone.
Yeah.
Rolling that blue line. Looked like his reach was that of like a 6'4" defenseman on some shifts rather than a 5'10" one. How much area he was covering and patrolling there. And I thought that he was really integral, not just in the puck management and in the playmaking aspects, but the off puck routes, driving the net off puck, creating lanes of space and pockets for Leonard, especially to attack, and just how much he was activating and just daring himself to go way deep into the offensive zone and always keeping enough momentum in those rushes to be able to turn back and get ahead of the play before it went the other way. So I thought it was a great tournament for Hudson, and he continues to distinguish himself at Boston University and here for Team USA. But to add on a little bit to that chemistry discussion with Finland, I think that it was really clear in this game that there were two reasons that Finland were so competitive. One, Petteri Rimponen, we'll talk about him a bit more again. But number two is they played as a collective. They were more than the sum of their parts. There was no reliance on individual brilliance of one player to break the game open. Sure, Consta Helenius is the star among the skaters on that team, and he led the team in points with 7 points, but those were all assists and very much connective play that was also reliant on the reads of his teammates very much. It was a real group effort. The effort level on every single shift, just making consistently good reads, even in overtime at 3-on-3, I thought that Finland defended so tenaciously. We're blocking off every single passing lane, seemingly when the States were just hounding them in the Finnish zone. And a really, really great display for Finland at this tournament, and so much for this group to be proud of, because on paper, this team should not have been a top 4 team at this tournament, but they were so much more than that because they had fantastic goaltending, really, really clear plan and system in place, and every single player did more than enough in terms of effort and energy and reads to make everything tick quite seamlessly.
Yeah, and that's what makes this tournament wonderful is you have different ways that teams can win games. You can have all-out offense. You can have high-end systems where everyone buys in, digs in, does the effort. That's how Finland got to this final to start with. So very, very impressive from those two teams. Petteri Rimponen was wonderful. We'll get into the details later on, but for the moment, just really want to highlight the fact that he made a couple of absolutely world-class 10 bell saves in overtime to keep Finland in this as much as possible. But at 3-on-3, it's all talent. David Carl knew that. He sent out his best pieces, and then Teddy Stiga with the overtime winner after being scratched at the start of the tournament. He gets a breakaway pass from Zeev Bouillon, who wasn't having of the best tournament at the start of this tournament, and then by the end of it just really came into his own. And once he gets that tongue out, he's the best player in the world. It's ridiculous. The moment you see his tongue exit his mouth, it's just immediate. He just becomes another worldly player. Beautiful, beautiful stretch pass for an entry by Teddy Stiga. Very smart by David Carl to send Teddy Stiga out in that situation as well, taking advantage of that skill depth that they brought to this tournament.
And the speed.
And the speed of Teddy Stiga. You cannot beat that. He goes 5-hole on Rimponen. And that's the secured win for USA. But I also want to mention the comeback. I mean, it started with just a weird bounce in the offensive zone. Brandon Savoda just shooting a puck on net, goes off a defenseman's chest at the front of the net and bounces past Rimponen. And from then, it was Cole Hudson's brilliance on the zone entry, a quick cut across, beauty of a cut across from Cole Hudson into a wrister, bar and in. beautiful shot. Never bet against the Hudson. Is the mantra of this podcast basically.
It
So
was a full power move for an undersized defenseman. Where have we seen this before?
absolutely, it's wonderful. Yeah, Cole Hudson is a gamer. He showed it at this tournament. Great pick by the Washington Capitals, who had another great pick in this tournament in Ryan Leonard. So it's looking good for them. But yeah, wonderful, wonderful game, full of ups and downs. And the comeback by USA was really all about. It wasn't grit. It wasn't digging deep. Pucks in deep and low cycles. It was skill. Get to the middle. Get shots off. Recycle. Do the things that you're good at. I think they played right into their strengths, and that's what got them their win at this tournament. Any last
It
words
was
before I get into?
relentless. It was
Yeah,
relentless offense, right?
yeah.
That was the name of the game for the States. As soon as I think they scored that goal, the lucky goal to make it 3-2, and then you saw Cole Hudson explode
They took
for the
over.
equalizer.
Yeah.
But it was just incessant offensive creation. They were buzzing around every single shift. I thought that they probably should have scored at least 2 goals in that third period, but didn't score a single one because of Pateri Rimpanen's brilliance.
Absolutely, yeah. He was the only reason this game was close by the end of it. But
Yeah.
that's our first segment done. We'll get to our second segment here. We're talking about the bronze medal game. There's another beautiful game that occurred today, a 14-round shootout ending with Czechia upsetting Sweden for the bronze medal. We'll get to that in just a sec, but just before, a quick word from our sponsors over at FanDuel.
From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel. Because right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same-game parlays, and so much more. Whether you want to take your swings here on the NFL playoffs or prefer perhaps European football with the Champions League, the choice really is up to you, as FanDuel gives you the options to take swings on whatever sports pique your interest. That might even be hockey if you are listening to this podcast. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL.
Alrighty, so moving on to the second segment, we have to talk about that bronze medal game. It was an absolute worldie of a game between Czechia and Sweden, ending with a 14-round shootout. That's a tournament record for the World Juniors, where Edward Shala scored a pair of shootout goals. Because remember, at the World Juniors, you can send the same forwards out again and again if you want after the first 5 shots. And Czechia benefited from that. Jakob Stanchel as well was absolutely wonderful in that game. So yeah, the breakdown's pretty simple. It starts off with an absolutely wonderful one-timer shot from Jakob Stanchel at the half wall on the power play. Beauty of a shot. Literally could not have placed it any more perfectly. Right in the top corner, bar down. Absolutely wonderful release from Stanchel, who was wonderful at this tournament. I mean, 7 goals in 7 games. We'll talk about him in detail in just a sec, because he was one of the best players at this tournament and was a key part in Czechia being a medaling team. So wonderful goal by him. And then David Estrom with just the most David Estrom goal I can think of to tie it up. Just whacking at it at the net front, catches it at the side of the net, and just elevates it just enough to get it past the Czech netminder Michael Robal. And that's 1-1. Then from there, Edward Shala went and scored an in-tight goal, got a quick short break off a turnover at the blue line, at the offensive zone blue line, where he got fed a puck, caught it mid-stride, and then moved it to his backhand to beat Marcus Gidloff, who was actually replacing Melker Thelin in this game after Thelin had a less than ideal performance, I would say, against Team USA. I thought it was a good idea for them to go with a changeup. And Gilloff is a wonderful goalie, 6'6", just got drafted this past draft, and he's looking absolutely wonderful. And played a great game there against Czechia. So just elevated to pass him on the backhand, Edward Shala, and then David Estrom again with the second most David Estrom goal I can think of.
Indeed.
Crashing the net, getting a tip from a wonderful pass from Felix Ungerstorm, who was also amazing at this tournament. Just how interesting were those 3 periods for Czechia and Sweden? I mean, it was tight. I think the shots were tied heading into overtime, weren't they?
Very nearly true. The shots were 34-33 in favor of Sweden, so pretty much tied in practice. And like the one advantage that Sweden did have in this game was how much power play time they got, as Czechia took 6 penalty minutes with 3 minor penalties there,
Yeah.
whereas Sweden only took a single one. And despite that, it was not enough for Sweden to take an overall lead in just regulation or in overtime, and it went to that absolute marathon of a shootout, and it was never ending, wasn't it? Do you want to like list off a couple of the players that took shootout attempts? Because again, there were many on either side. Not quite 14, because you saw Stanchel and Charlotte retake multiple draws, of course, for Czechia, but there were a lot of names that were used there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the list is absolutely long on that side, and I mean, I don't think we can name all of the prospects that took shots in this shootout, but it was absolutely ridiculous. I think I definitely know Axel Sandy Pelika took 3 of them, and
Stenberg took multiple.
yeah, absolutely. And Sandy Pelika, I understand, because that shootout goal he scored, oh my goodness, this kid's hands are ridiculous. Like he could. I feel like he could easily play forward very very comfortably. Like he's got the skill set for it. He was in the OV spot on the power play for Sweden this whole tournament. Like he's got absolute world class skill. But yeah, they had to dig deep. I mean, I remember the Peter Sikora shootout attempt, which had absolutely everyone booing in the arena there for that bronze medal game. A lot of Canada fans that are very disappointed to see their team eliminated in the quarterfinals there. But I don't blame Peter Sikora for that. I think that's a self-inflicted problem by Team Canada. So I found that very funny that it seemed like the number one enemy in Canada was a 19-year-old. Was very funny at this tournament. But overall, insane shootout. Goes to 14 rounds before Edward Shala puts it away with a beauty of a goal. And that's the win for Czechia. And I mean, honestly, both of these teams played wonderfully throughout the tournament. But you mentioned the indiscipline for Czechia. It was the same problem for Team Canada. Czechia was second behind them in penalties taken at this tournament, and by a decent margin ahead of the rest of the teams at this tournament. So what was the difference between Czechia and Canada in terms of Czechia making it to the bronze medal and Canada getting eliminated in the quarters, despite both of them having pretty similar problems? Going for grit instead of skill in terms of some of their selections of this tournament, and being very indisciplined. Like, what's the difference between these two teams for you?
Czechia practiced.
that like, pretty much sums it up.
It's a simple explanation, but I think it plays a role. Like, I think when you have a group of players that have very limited chemistry and you're playing the most important games of your life and you're not practicing or doing much in between games, you're not setting yourself up for success. And I think beyond just practice, I think also just like humility is a part of that with Czechia. Every single player bought in. With Canada, there's a reason that not every player bought in, because there was not much to buy into. Yep. And I thought that the dedication on every single shift was so clear for Czechia. And it was another beautiful little Cinderella run here at this tournament. We had 2 of them, really. 3, genuinely. Like Finland to the finals, that's a Cinderella run. Czechia to the bronze medal victory, that as well. And Latvia, I mean, beating out Canada in the group stage. This was a fantastic tournament for these storylines, for teams that weren't expected to win.
Yeah, and giving hell to Sweden on.
Oh my god!
Actually, like giving them trouble. Was very very.
Finland beat them. This is a strong Swedish team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So very, very interesting squad on that side. Yeah, so many different stories at this tournament, but I'm really happy that Czechia. I think this is their second bronze medal in a row, isn't it? Like they've been playing good recently. They didn't have Yuri Kulik like they did last year or 2 years ago. They didn't have some of these high-end pieces, but Edward Shala played his butt off at this tournament, and Jakob Stansel as well. They had a couple of key depth pieces that played key roles. Yuri Felkman, a couple of undrafted pieces as well in there that did really well.
Tomasz Galvash was fantastic.
Obviously, he should have been drafted last year. I mean, I'm gonna get back
multiple times.
Yeah, like honestly, it's ridiculous. But hopefully, teams learn their lessons and try to give him a shot. I don't know how high up an NHL lineup he's going to play, but he's got high end skill and insane skater. Like he's great. That's our second segment done. We'll get into our third segment here where we cover the overall All-Star segment. So we'll talk about the Directorate Awards of top goaltender, defenseman, and forward, the media voted All-Stars, and we'll dress our own ballot for the All-Stars of this tournament. We'll get into that in just a sec, but just before, a quick word from our sponsors over at Rocket Money. Did Rocket Money help you find any subscriptions you forgot about or that you were paying for twice? That's definitely happened to me. I had a few subscriptions that I didn't even realize I was paying for, and Rocket Money made it so easy to track them all down. It's like having a personal assistant on your phone for your finances. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It brings everything together in one place, whether subscriptions, your spending habits, or even the goals you want to hit this year. Rocket Money has over 5 million subscribers and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. For me, one of the best features is really the subscription tracker. It saved me so much money. I've used it to cancel services I wasn't using anymore for a while, and I've already saved a ton through that. And with their goals feature, I've been able to automatically set aside money for my future, so no more sweating about budgeting every month. So cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/locked-on today. That's rocketmoney.com/locked-on. Alrighty, so let's close things off here with the All-Stars segment. We'll talk about the Directorate Awards first and foremost, and they're pretty straightforward. I think they're pretty predictable on that side. The top goaltender, we're going to talk about him a lot in this segment, Petteri Rimponen. What a world-class performance at this tournament. And I remember mentioning to you earlier on this tournament in the group stage, like, this kid is really good. Like surprisingly technically sound, surprisingly calm in net. Basically came out of nowhere at this tournament for people who don't really watch European hockey that much. But he's an 18-year-old kind of tearing it up in Liga right now, right?
He leads all of Liga in save percentage, and if I remember correctly, I shot you down a little bit when you were suggesting him there for goalie of the tournament in our predictions. Perhaps not my finest hour, but he was fantastic at this tournament, truly. And I mean, in 7 games there for Finland, a .933 save percentage, a 5-2 record, only conceding 17 goals against and saving 238 shots in one tournament. It was a heavy workload for this player, and he was solid throughout, going into the gold medal game as well. Like, to the very, very, very end, he was fantastic in overtime. Finland probably should have lost once or twice at least before they did, because of his efforts, and he was fantastic. And yeah, but who else got the awards here from the directorate? Because I believe on the defensive side we have a back-to-back winner here, right?
Absolutely. Axel Sandin-Pellikka, for the second year in a row, gets the Directorate Award as the top defenseman at this tournament. I do want to close off on Petteri Rimponen. The reason why he wasn't drafted last year, he's a 6-foot netminder. That's already a bad start for goalies when it comes to getting drafted by NHL teams. But what's also really interesting with Rimponen is, you look at the save percentage in Liga, like 916 save percentage in 29 games, 24 starts. It's absolutely ridiculous. The 933 save percentage at the World Juniors is already very impressive. I mean, for me, what was really, really impressive with Petteri Rimponen was just how calm he was in net. Like, for me, there was one thing that was really weird, I'd say, is the fact that he kept losing a stick. I don't know what's going on that side. I don't know if he buttered his stick or something. Like, it was very funny. It happened at least 4 times in that gold medal game. Like,
I also noticed he lost his post, like, I think 3 times, but every single time it happened was when the American forward bobbled the puck behind the net or something. It was always, the timing was always perfect for it.
Absolutely, yeah. So you got to take this World Juniors performance with a grain of salt. I still think that his size is playing against him. I don't know if he'll be a pick this time around. Passed over last year's an April 6th birthday. Listen,
he'll probably be a pick after this performance. I think so.
Adam Guyon got picked in 2023 ahead of the likes of Jacob Fowler and those kinds of guys. I think
3rd overall.
Yeah, I think there's a likelihood that this could happen. I don't know how early though, but we'll see. So going back to ASP, Axel Sandin-Pellikka, second year in a row, the MVP according to the Directorate Awards, and I think it's well deserved. He had a ton of points at this tournament. Was he joint lead or was he second to Cole Hudson?
He was second behind Cole Hudson, but he was tied for second. So you have a defenseman at number 1 in scoring at the tournament and a defenseman tied at number 2.
Absolutely. So those two were wonderful. But Axel Sanni-Pellikka gets the award. I understand it. I mean, he was in the Ovi spot the whole tournament for Sweden and was the driver of their power play in terms of shots on goal, in terms of big scoring chances, dynamic with the puck. He's chock full of skill, and he's going to be wonderful for the Detroit Red Wings for years to come. And then at forward, Ryan Leonard, no surprise there. It felt like I was watching a 30-year-old NHLer play a junior game. Like it's just like his physical
He is an
dominance.
NHLer.
Yeah, like he's an NHLer. He's going to be playing NHL minutes next year. He's ready for it. I saw some people complaining about getting thrown down on the ice and stuff like that. That mostly happened at the end of shifts. Early shift Ryan Leonard is just trucking through guys, winning every battle. It felt like I was watching a seasoned NHL player just dominate junior hockey. Like it was really funny. But let's get into the media voted All Stars. So at the end of the day, the goaltender of the tournament, according to the media, Petteri Rimponen, again, um, he's I mean, he's undisputed. Like there's no debating how good this goalie was. Absolutely ridiculous for Finland, more than deserving. The deep pairing, according to the media voted All Stars, was Lane Hudson. Lane Hudson. Listen, they're the same size. They come from the same family. They play the same position, the same style. You can't blame me for mistaking. Cole Hudson and Axel Sanni-Pellikka were the deep pairing, according to the media. And then the three forwards that were named as the forwards of the tournament, Ryan Leonard, Jakob Stansel, and surprisingly enough, Gabe Perreault. I thought he was the third cog on that line, honestly, most of this tournament. He was trying to play Ryan Leonard's style, which isn't Gabe Perreault's usual style. I felt he would have been a lot better kind of playing off his strengths, being a high-end playmaker, a high-end distributor, working with James Higgins to find Ryan Leonard. Leonard would have had more goals at this tournament if Pro was playing that role. I didn't really like his tournament that much, so that surprised me a bit. So that brings us to our ballot and what we would change about things on that side. In net, I mean, I think we can just glaze past this. Is Petteri Rimponen? There's no debate. That's not changing on our side. But we do have an honorable mention we need to talk about. Lennart Feldbergs of Latvia. He had a wonderful tournament, right?
He absolutely did. I mean, he had a 929 save percentage for Latvia in 5
Latvia?
games.
How?
And that was with a 2-3 record. Of course, like a victory against Canada in there, but
Yep.
A 929 save percentage while you lose more games than you win for
Yep.
Team Latvia at the World Junior Championships. Fantastic performance. And were not for this fantastic run that Petteri Rimponen had to the final with Team Finland, carrying them in almost every single game. Feldbergs would have been a fantastic candidate here for goaltender of the tournament as well. But moving on to the defensive pairing, we don't have anything changed here from the media vote All-Stars, though we did have a little bit of debate on this.
Yep.
In the end, we did go as well with Cole Hudson and Axel Sanni-Pellikka for that pure offensive punch, dominating shifts. We are of the mind that Hudson was the defenseman of the tournament, though, ahead of Sanni-Pellikka, which should be noted. But which other defensemen were in contention in these spots for us?
Yeah, so there was another right-handed defenseman on Sweden that I thought, especially in the final stretch, outperformed Axel Sanni-Pellikka in terms of pure effectiveness, impact on the game, and overall dominance in all three zones. Tom Willander was absolutely wonderful for Sweden. I thought he was a better of the two in the semifinals and the finals. Played wonderfully for them. Very impactful, very creative. So I thought that he deserved a mention as well. And Aron Kiviharju deserves a mention. He was a captain for Finland, and he was the leader on the ice for them. He was creative from the back end, constantly creating breakout chances. Emil Pieniemi, who was his deep partner, could have had a mention in there as well. So a lot of candidates on that side. But finally, let's get into the forwards. Ryan Leonard stays there. He's going to stay there. He was the best forward at this tournament overall.
He's an NHLer at a junior tournament. Of course,
Yeah,
he's going to be in there.
It's not fair. But the things we would change is the two forwards next to him. First and foremost, a favorite of both of ours, a guy that we raved about in this draft year, and so far we've been proven right about him, Felix Unger Sorum. His only weakness is not being able to skate that well, but God does his brain work on a different level. And he was the creator for Sweden at this tournament at forward. Playmaking skill, high-end passes through seams, constantly connecting defense to offense. He was the all-nice leader for them and really showing his creativity. But finally, we didn't even take the best scorer from Czechia as our final guy as a team at the tournament forwards group. Edward Shala makes the front three for us here. What made his tournament so impactful?
It was just the intelligence of play, and it reminded me so much of the fantastic tournament he had in his D-1 campaign. And I haven't had this much fun watching Edward Charla play hockey since that exact performance. His time in the OHL has been a bit difficult at times, but he's been great in the AHL this season, and he looked the part of a pro player at this tournament. His combination of quick hands and quick mind were
Yep.
quite overwhelming at times, especially when he got in tight next to the goal. And he was just so lethal there, whether it be in the shootout or on like half breaks or breakaways. When he had space to work with, he was lethal for the Czechs. And I think just overall in 200-foot play was the leader on the ice for them. But let's dive into the honorable mentions here to wrap up the show. And just a little quick fire here. We've got a pair of centermen whose last names start with H, with James Higgins of the USA, who was the second cog on that top line behind Ryan Leonard, as well as Konsta Helenius, who just drove everything for Finland and connected that play, was the anchor, just holding everything down and making the high-intensity style work for Team Finland. And then finally here, we have two wingers who scored a goal a game at the tournament. So talk me through Jakub Stancil and our favorite Latvian power forward.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's start off with Stoncil. Very, very. I mean, the two play a pretty similar style. They're big bodies, love to drive the net, drop the shoulder. Stoncil really showed off his ability to just dominate the half wall in the power play for Czechia and just rifle pucks on net. Took advantage of a lot of moments of indiscipline on other teams that weren't his, surprisingly, to score some goals. And Eric Smatejko, clutch central. I mean, just absolutely wonderful timing on his goals. Scored some key goals to keep Latvia in games or put them in the lead at key moments. And I don't think that Latvia would have had the story that they had without Stenbergs and Leonard Svelbergs and Eric Smatejko. There's so many Bergs at this tournament. Anyway, so those are the two guys that we mentioned as our honorable mentions as well for the great tournaments that they had. Even though Latvia did not get did not get past the quarterfinals, Feldbergs and Matejko played so well that they made the honorable mentions here for our teams of the tournament. So that's our episode done. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you're watching on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe. Let us know in the comments what you think of the episode. And if you're listening on your favorite podcasting platform, please leave us a rate and review and make sure to make us your first listen of the day. For your second listen of the day, remember to check out Locked On Sports Today. They've got all your news and updates about what's going on around sports. And remember to check out our next episodes as we finalize our prospect coverage for the month of January. This has been Hattie Kalakash with Sebastian High. Thank you for watching, and we hope you tune in next time.